Welcome back. Thank you again for visiting the channel. In the last lesson, we talked about the standard rules and the reasoning behind why we created them and how they're being used to drive the remaining lessons. Today, we're going to talk about setting up the game. And what's nice about Bukharo is that you only really need two things to play. You need players and you need decks of cards. And before I go into any more detail, it's all written right here. So Bukharo requires a minimum of two players, but you can play with as many people as you want. Honestly, you could play with 100 players. The real limitation is the number of decks you need. So the more players you have, the more decks you'll need to play. What I would say, especially for those of you starting out, try to play with a smaller set of people, maybe four or six. Try not to go beyond that because it's just much harder to follow along the more people are playing the game. It can get a little bit out of hand. Once you're comfortable, if you like playing with four or six people or two people, that's totally fine. If you want to go higher, go to 10, absolutely cool. Now, if you're that ambitious person and you want to play with more than 10 people, go to 12, go to 50, however many, power to you. Sky's the limit. Go for it. Just make sure you have enough decks of cards, and make sure that you're not getting too ahead of yourself. But I encourage it. It's got to be a whole different level of challenge, and I'd love to hear about it. So feel free to leave me some comments if you ever decide to do that. Now, to play Bukharo, it requires a minimum of two decks for up to four players. Once you get to more than four players, for every two players that you add, I should say for every beyond that, for every player that you add, you will need one additional deck of cards for every additional two players. So once you get to five, you'll need three, seven, you'll need four, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm I should just put it out there because eventually you'll figure it out when you start following along with the lessons. But I'm kind of a nerd, and I actually thought about this a little bit as to why you'd need it. And I think I figured it out, and I got really excited, and I just figured I'd share it. And I'm sure that 95% of you won't care, but you know what? It's my channel. I'm just going to share it and do whatever with it as you will. So what I'm thinking is that, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but each player will get 13 cards to start with in Bukharo. So if you think about it, you have four players times 13 cards will be 52 cards, right? How many cards are in a deck? There's 52. So if we just had one deck of cards for four players, we'd have no cards left. So what's a good amount of cards to leave? Well, you want to have maybe, let's say, twice as many as what you're actually dealing out. So for four people, which is the max for two decks of cards, you'll have 52 cards dealt out, and then a total of 104 cards in two decks, which will mean 52 are left in to just play with. And that, if you notice, as you get to more cards with six players times 13 cards is 78 cards, which is one half of 156 cards, which is what's in three decks. Eight players, same thing. 8 times 13 is what? It's about 104, and 52 times 4 is 208. So again, you get to that half. So it's just one of those things where it's like, oh man, it's just exactly half of the cards that you deal out with the max group of players is what's remaining in the deck to actually play the game. So again, apologize, totally not relevant to anything that you'll actually need for playing, but it's one of those interesting math anecdotes that I thought I'd throw out there. You're welcome, or I apologize. Pick one. All right, anyway, so a little bit of a graphical representation. So for two players, we only need two decks of cards. As we get higher, three players, we still need two. Four players, we still need two. Now we get to five players, and so for the next two sets, for five players and six players, we'll need three decks of cards. Now, as we go above that to seven, we need to add another deck. So four decks of cards for seven and eight players, and then for nine players, we have to bump it up to five, which will stay the same for 10. So you can see that every player that we're adding, every second player that we're adding another deck of cards. Just keep that in mind when you play. So as long as you have, if you have a you know 50 decks of cards sitting around, you can play up to, I guess, about 100 people. So I'm not saying you do it, but if you want to, you're more than welcome. And again, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Now, for the purposes of this game and for the lessons here, we'll just be playing with four players. It makes a whole lot easier on the interface if I was playing with, less than 20 people, so you could see what was going on. So every lesson in this tutorial assumes that we're playing with four players, which again is two decks of cards. Okay, that's it for this lesson. Thank you again for watching. I mentioned this last time and just throwing it out there again. There is an app available for your iPhone or your iPad at the App Store. You can click on you can use the QR code, or I'll provide the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to read more, there's also an ebook available on Amazon, and I'll provide a link for that as well. Please feel free to leave your comments and suggestions and feedback on any one of these, the app, the book, or this channel. I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess I will talk to you next time. Have a fantastic day.